Hello humans, and welcome everyone to the Halloween special. There are a few updates that I have done around the base that I want to show you all before we go into the Halloween carnival. So let's not waste a single second and get into that. In the end, I have expanded the workstation. It made the most sense, especially since some of the things I have added I was still doing them by hand. This corner is still the same as it was, with the same crushing setup and the mechanical saws. Which, I have added the icon of the stone cutter, since that one displays much better on a placard, and I think it looks fantastic with the light. As for the wooden section, I decided to simply expand that filter a little bit to include all the other wood recipes that can be turned back into planks. It felt a lot easier than adding extra recipes on the chipped side, especially since I'm already using this corner for wood anyway. As for the rest of the building, I have added some of the things that I was either doing by hand, or had a pretty bad setup on a corner of the old workstation. Starting with this haunting setup, which is literally a funnel dropping items into another funnel that happens to have a soul campfire in front of it. It doesn't get any more simple than this, but to be fair, I don't really haunt that many things anyway. Next, we have even more wood stuff, which let me show you how I managed those filters at the end, because I went for a rather simple thing. All I did was add a single filter with stripped logs and basic planks, that's literally it. I thought about it in length and I had a few ideas on how to make a more complex filter, but I really don't use mechanical saws that often. The only reason I sometimes use them instead of a crafting table is because of the rates. By checking at sawing recipes, we can see how one stripped log gives us 6 planks of that wood type. In comparison, the same recipe on a crafting bench will only give us 4 of those, which means a 50% increase in rates. Sure, it's just wood, it's not that hard to produce more, but the same reasoning still applies. That's the only time I use the mechanical saw for. The next machine will be the mechanical press, which is very useful for obvious reasons, and something that I was still doing in Damdam's base because I didn't have one. The mixer is a bit different, because I'm mainly using this for some shapeless recipes. I already have a mixer for the brass and andesite, so this setup comes without a blaze burner to simply run some shapeless recipes. Of course, I also had to include a machine to make casings. Those are annoying to do by hand, and they are fairly quick to produce in mass with a single deployer. Right now there is sandpaper in the deployer because I was using this machine to polish some rose quartz to make electrotubes, but the same idea still applies for the casings. All you need to do is add as many strip logs as you want in this barrel at the back, then fill up the hopper with whatever ingot or alloy you require to make the casings. Eventually, they will all end up in this barrel, which I'm sure we all had similar setups like this in many other worlds. The last part of the workstation is dedicated to the precision mechanisms. Same reason as the casings, annoying to do it by hand, or at least without an automatic setup, but easy to produce in mass with a few deployers. Making use of the vault to move the items around, and keep the cycles going. At least until it's done and can get picked up at this depot in the corner. I have set it to 4 units, but obviously, that can be changed to any amount we need. There is also a depot down here to place all of the golden sheets. And all of the hoppers at the top to make sure there are materials to craft the mechanisms. I thought about adding some chests on the ceiling to have more stock than what those hoppers allow, but I generally don't mind supplying materials every now and then. 6 stacks of each material is plenty enough, but let me show you all how this thing does. We just need to add as many gold sheets as we want, then we wait a little bit until they are all done being crafted. It's honestly a really satisfying machine to look at. I love the sounds of the deployers working on the mechanisms. Now that it ran out of gold sheets, it's just a matter of waiting for them to be completed. Eventually, they will all end up stored in this vault, as well as the leftovers from when the craft doesn't succeed. I have a funnel at the back to extract those random items, but I'm not particularly worried about that for the time being. I doubt I will even fill up this vault with mechanisms. Oh geez, that really scared me. But yeah, that's about it for the base update. How about we go check out that Halloween carnival? It looks super cool, doesn't it? I think it looks so amazing. I love how this area turned out to be. I can't wait to come here and have fun with everyone. It's going to be so much fun. But we're going to take a look at the exterior in a little bit. Let's check out what I've done inside my pumpkin. For the first floor, I've decided to make a little showcase of some fun redstone interactions, at least some that I thought were cool, or maybe not always as obvious and well known. With some signs and all to explain a little bit about how each of the interactions works. On the top floor, I have placed some that are more toward games, which we will see in a bit. For now, let's have a peek at all of these. Redstone mechanics and interactions, that's more or less what this section is about. All of them are interactive, so if anyone wants to have some fun around the pumpkin, they are welcome to come play with it. The first area talks about redstone signals and what the game considers as solid blocks. In here, we can see some examples of the blocks that will let through a redstone signal, and those non-solid blocks that won't. Some of them are fairly obvious, especially with the partial blocks like slabs, fences, and so on. But then we have more interesting cases like glass, or even sea lanterns. Those aren't considered solid, even though they look like a full block. For the next part, we have a mechanic of the repeaters that for anyone who doesn't do redstone, is very rarely used. Which is what happens when you power them from the side. Most people know that a signal behind the repeater will be, well, repeated in the front, and they will always output a signal strength of 15. Once we lose the signal from behind, then it stops repeating. But if we power it again, and now also power it from the side, we can lock the repeater so it holds the signal and keeps emitting. That can also be used to prevent a signal if we lock it when it's still disabled, which can be useful in some cases. It doesn't matter what we do behind the repeater, it won't change the current signal that is repeating, not until we unlock it again. Next, we have some fun stuff with comparators, where I'm mostly explaining how they work, since many people seem to mix them up and get confused on how exactly each mode functions. The first section showcases the normal comparator mode. We can observe in the first example that as long as the signal from behind it is higher than any of the signals from the side, the comparator will emit a signal at the same strength that is receiving. In this example is receiving a signal of strength 11, so it emits that same strength forward. We could have the side strength to be as high as the one in the back, but the moment it reaches 12, it will immediately turn it off. Something that it's also shown in the next section, since it's receiving a strength of 10, but the side one is all the way to 15. The subtractor mode is a little bit more interesting, but a bit less useful for those that don't do a lot of redstone, since most basic circuits don't get affected by signal strength that much. In the first example, we can see how the signal from the side is being subtracted from the signal from behind. It's important to note that in the case of having a signal on each side, it will only take the highest one. If, for example, the other side had a signal strength of 10, it would take that one and not the current signal of 5. In the case that the signal from behind is lower than any of the signals from the sides, it will simply show a 0, since it can't go into negative numbers. The next corner shows some fun stuff around redstone lamps, and how to power them. This is a bit more well known, at least I think it is. It shows in what scenarios do redstone lamps emit a signal to adjacent blocks, for example when directly powered by a lever. On the other hand, when the lamp receives a signal, that will light it up, but because it's emitting light doesn't mean it produces a redstone signal on its own. In the same way, we can use levers to power lamps through another block, so it only powers one of them. This is very useful when we have several lamps in a row, but we want them to work independently of one another. The last portion shows how we can use that same idea to sever the connection with a redstone circuit, without actually turning off the circuit entirely, by simply removing the block in between. It's quite obvious in this example because there is just one torch underneath, but it can be useful when there is an entire independent circuit where we hook the lamp onto. The last segment of the bottom floor shows some examples of how observers work. As it says in the sign, observers will get triggered by changes in the block states. Something important to note is that they will emit a pulse behind them when they get triggered, meaning that they won't emit a constant signal. We have some examples like waterlogging a block, which will trigger the observer every time we add or remove water from it. Or when a block gets placed or removed from the observer. Oh, this is a funny one. It also works with just the head portion of the piston. It doesn't need any blocks, just the head of the piston triggers it already. Opening a barrel will trigger it too, or even a chest if we were using that. Hoppers are well known, but an observer can also be triggered by just locking the hopper itself. Every time that it locks and unlocks will trigger the observer. And the last fun interaction is just a redstone ore, because those do also change of state when you punch or walk over them. After a little bit, it will also trigger the observer when it stops. There are many ways in which we can trigger an observer, but those are a few of the ones I think are interesting, and more practical to use. Now if we take a look at the top floor, we have a couple of funny games we can play with. Starting with something pretty simple, which is a dance floor. Rose lamps have the fun function of turning off whenever we power up a different one that is connected with the rest. We can see at the back there is one already powered up. We can simply step on this pressure plate to power up this one, removing the previous one. We can do this with any of the lamps in here, and only the latest powered lamp will remain active. This obviously has more functional uses than this silly thing, but it's a fun thing to have, and I love the sound that the pressure plates make when you step on them. It's worth noting that several lamps can be activated at the same time, and they will all stay active until the next one. We could essentially power this entire floor at the same time if we wanted to, that would work fine. This next game is inspired by Minecraft dungeons, in particular, those puzzles that require you to complete a redstone line of blocks. Just like with that game, we want to complete the row, which in this case is made of redstone lamps. I learned how to do this a few years ago, and I think it's always a pretty fun combination lock to have for a dungeon or something. On the side, I showed what exactly is behind the glass, but this is mostly an excuse to hold the signs on something. We essentially want to press some of those buttons to activate some of the pistons at a given time. You can notice how activating the same piston again retracts it instead. So we essentially need to go back and forth on it until we can power them all up. Oh, never mind, I guess, I already completed it. I think Damn made the last combination. I wasn't expecting to get it without trying, that was lucky. We will continue on that in a second. Let me show you how it's wired so it will make more sense. At the back of it, we have a series of links that will activate the pistons, and another row of links with the same frequencies that simply show when a piston is active or not. The extenders will reverse the signal, so this redstone dust remains active as long as at least one of the pistons isn't active yet. That is essentially how I'm triggering the lamp at the end, and how it requires the entire row to be complete to activate. While it activates the redstone lamp whenever this line of dust goes offline, it also reaches down here and fires a single pulse on this redstone link. If that feels like it's missing some stuff, that's because it is. This is the rest of the circuit that makes it work, and I know it looks big, but it's mostly due to the redstone dust. The first links are connected to the last one we saw at the bottom. This basically resets the game whenever someone completes it. This top row of links, and the redstone lines that come off them, are wired to each one of those buttons down there. If we press this one, which is coded as the green one, that momentarily disabled this redstone line, which they interact with all of these redstone torches on the side of them. All of those bottom lines represent each of the pistons we have down there. So whenever we press a button, all of the torches attached to that redstone line will get powered up, and that will activate the lines connected to the pistons. That's how we can determine which pistons we want to fire for each one of those buttons. The latch has two functions here. To keep the signal active after we press the button, and to go offline the next time that this redstone line activates. We can see how some of those buttons share the same pistons, so if we press them, the shared piston will go offline, making this puzzle a little bit more interesting. Otherwise, it would become a press all the buttons until all of them are active, and that's boring. It also makes it very easy to change the combination to something else, which can be made as hard or easy as we want it to be. I think this is a really cool contraption if you're planning on making a dungeon or something like that, and it's surprisingly simple to build once you know how it works. The last game is a little bit more tricky to understand at first, but it's actually a lot more simple once you know it. We have seen before how powering a rose lamp would deactivate any other lamp that is connected to them. The idea here is to power this last rose lamp, the one currently active, and we have all of those analog levers to do so. But here is the catch, only one of those rose lamps will trigger the most left one, and that will only happen when all of the top redstone lamps are disabled. All of those redstone lamps are connected to the rose lamps, so when you activate one, the redstone lamp on top goes offline. If we press the analog lever again, we should send a signal on the sides. That will activate 2 new rose lamps at the same time. And with that, you can see how 2 more redstone lamps went offline. Another press of the lever would activate this repeater here, but that's actually the rose lamp that unlocks the system, so we can't activate that one yet, not while there are more redstone lamps that remain active. That means we need to go to another part of the circuit, and do the same thing while leaving the main rose lamp for the last one. Now that we are down to one single redstone lamp, we can activate the last one, and that should disable all other rose lamps that are currently active. And here we have the lamp that we wanted to unlock. This one needs to be reset manually, because those analog levers work like that. But it's a surprisingly simple circuit, to be honest with you. If I remove this casing here, we can see that on the other side of those repeaters, we have a row of comparators. These are here waiting for a redstone signal so they can turn off those torches one by one. Those torches are what's keeping all of those redstone lamps active. There is another row of comparators that are listening to those torches, and will keep emitting a signal as long as at least one of them remains active. That is hooked onto the side of another comparator via a redstone repeater, which makes sure that the comparator is always locked for as long as any redstone lamp remains active. On the other side of these comparators, we have one single pulse repeater that will fire up when the right rose lamp goes active, and it won't fire again until we reset the puzzle. The comparator will remain locked until we deactivate all of the redstone lamps, which means that we need to leave that rose lamp for last. It is a fairly simple build to make, and changing the key rose lamp is as easy as moving this pulse repeater somewhere else. That is how this silly little game works, and as I said, once you know how it works, it becomes incredibly trivial to unlock. But I'm sure it will be fun to mess with the first couple of times, at least I do hope people have fun with it. But that pretty much concludes the inside of this cool pumpkin I made. I'm honestly happy with it. I like a good balance of puzzle fun with some redstone learning on the side, and I'm very pleased with it. Oh, before we go outside, can I just say, those naked framed blocks look amazing, do they not? I don't know if it's because of the orange in the back, but I think they look so cool as structural support. As for the exterior goes, I think everyone did an amazing job, especially with all of these decorations around the paths. The colors are spot on, and they fit so well with the season. And look at all these mushrooms and everything, it looks so amazing. The amount of detail and the density of it is so great, I love it. On the first corner, we have a pretty cool pumpkin stand, because there can't be a proper carnival with some food, am I right? I think it looks super cute, I love the silly variations of the pumpkins, and all the little details of it. After several more decorations and walls of foliage, oh. Right, and of course the mighty Skelly Dragoon that 𝐋𝐢𝐬 made with 𝐋𝐢𝐬𝐬, which looks insane to be honest. Isn't this the coolest way of using trains that you have ever seen? Absolutely amazing. And we can also see the giant bat that Dam made, which looks super cool. Not only the design is incredibly well made, but it also moves and everything, I love it. But anyway, after all of that, we have the bat dome. In case you want to visit my family, there are many of them in here. Of course with some blood canals to feed the cuties, unless they really get hungry and decide to bite you instead. Something that is also super cool is this skull that Wolfie made, which contains a flight anchor, hence why I'm able to fly even though I'm in survival mode. I also love how the steam engine inside it looks like their brain or something like that. But that's not the only neat feature of it, we can also boop their nose for this amazing animation. I love it, that is so cool. There is also my big pumpkin, which we have already seen the interior of. For a design that I improvised in half an hour, it's honestly not bad. I like the top part of it the most, I think it looks pretty cool with the branch, and the big lantern. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and it connects really well with the path and everything. On the other side we have even more trees and decorations, which I still can't get over how amazing they look. But between all of those cool decorations, we have this big building. This is a mini game that 𝐋𝐢𝐬𝐬 made for the carnival, and I can't wait to play it with everyone. We can press this button and see a sneak peek of how this thing works. It's basically a last person standing kind of game, where all the platforms will go down except for one, and everyone needs to survive as long as they can. For an idea as simple as this, I think they did an amazing job at building a really fun game. I had a peek at the redstone behind it, and it's honestly pretty neat. It's a fairly simple idea. They were asking on Discord the other day about how to make a 9-way randomizer, which I think I ended up recommending them a Mumbo video, I believe it was. I'm glad they were able to figure out how to build all of this. It's a really cool build, and it fits surprisingly well in this corner. Everything is so well tied together. The next section is the well of the tomato, which I imagine is trying to imitate blood, and I think it really does look like it. It almost looks like blood more than tomato soup, to be honest. Tomato soup should be a lot more towards the orange. On the other side of it we have even more blood, but this time in the shape of a pretty cute food stand. I love the little details and everything about it. It looks so cool. We can choose from 0 positive, A negative, and B positive. That's so funny. I like how the tank and all of that copper looks with the rest. It kinda gives a fairly modern vibe, while still keeping it quite rustic in general. Really nice and cute, unlike this next and last build, which is anything but cute. Looks like they went for a more green background for this section, and I think I actually get it. It fits really well, and gives the pumpkin a lot more contrast. And even though it's a very simple build, it's honestly really well made. The shape of the pumpkin is spot on, and it is really spooky. Good job on this one. But this is all we have going on at the Halloween Carnival. I think everyone did an amazing job, very proud of how it all looks together. Can't wait to come here together and have some fun with the mini games and everything we have going on. It's going to be so much fun. For now, this will have to be it for this episode, and I couldn't thank you enough if you made it this far into the episode. Next week I won't be home from Thursday to almost Monday, because I will be going to an event with my sister during those days. That means that there will be a new episode for the early game farms, somewhere between Monday to Wednesday, but there won't be an SMP episode until the week after that at least. I will be keeping you all updated on my Discord, and I might post a picture here and there on my Twitter. Not a picture of my face, obviously, don't get too excited about that. But I might be sharing some pictures of the places, and the stuff we do. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!